All right, everyone. The USA Today is subject to a merger involved with several media firms, and so they're actually. It's going to take a while, up to 2 years apparently, but they're going to be phasing out their print edition. This will piss my mom off actually because she still occasionally gets the USA Today for the comics, having not, I think, fully realized, as some people in her generation haven't, that comics are all available for free online. You don't need to pay 50 cents anymore to read them. It's the sort of thing you read it in the store and then you leave it. I used to do that with Mad Magazine a bit. Sorry, store owners. Anyway, I can't imagine at this point, when you've got the internet, you've got websites you can go to for free, or you can subscribe to them if you really have to, but there's really no reason because of archives, because of people endlessly replicating material, which is exactly why the legacy media is in support of all of these draconian copyright acts that are coming out lately. You can get all of that same news and interact with it and get it in a mobile format for essentially nothing. Why on earth would you buy a newspaper unless you're a crazy bird lady or something and you need something to shred up and put in their enclosures? Oh, my dog shits on the floor all the time. Well, I buy the USA Today each day so that it has a place to go to the toilet several times. Okay, then it makes sense. But other than spastic animal owners, there's literally no reason whatsoever for them to exist. Look, you're cutting down a bunch of trees to make worthless propaganda when you can just get your worthless propaganda and you don't even have to pay for it. You know, they've got ads on these sites for what little it's worth. They sell their paywall bullshit subscriptions now to half of these sites. By the way, I would never pay a red cent for any of these things. Half the time, the paywall won't affect the archiving anyway. And even if it does, somebody else who's actually gotten through the paywall through whatever means, they can just replicate it elsewhere and just, rehost the same basic material. Why not? Just somebody with a subscription service archives it, puts the archive out there, case closed. It's not illegal. You're not pirating the work, you're hosting an archive, a screenshot of the website. It doesn't even make any sense whatsoever, though, to buy a magazine, or I don't even know why, like magazine racks. What's the point anymore? It's a bunch of bullshit. I don't know anybody really who cares about these things other than, somebody has a waiting room, there's magazines there, but again, the average person can't take their eyes off their fucking smartphone for more than 5 seconds. I don't suffer from this problem. Most people do, especially within my particular age range. They can read the same magazine right on their little phone. They can go to any website they want. They can talk to people. They can work. They can do anything. It's like the concept of leisure has been fundamentally transformed. There's no longer a place for simply doing nothing. And there's certainly no longer a place for sitting down and reading the newspaper with other people and remarking on the news. Like when I talk to my grandpa. Case in point, the different generations. Talked to my grandpa long ago before he died. Say, oh yeah, all the old timers used to go down, and this was the generation before his. We're talking, people that were young and in the late 1800s would go down. This is the Depression era, and one of them would buy a copy of the paper, and they'd sit around, they'd drink coffee, read the paper, talk politics, talk sports, talk shop, whatever. They'd go down and do that. His generation, and he was one of the first television owners actually in the state, if I remember correctly, him relating this. It was like the first black and white TVs were so bad it would look like it was basically snowing and shit. It's rural Vermont, so there wasn't a lot going on as far as technology anyway. We're talking 40s and 50s era. People would read the newspaper. They'd have their subscription. People would go and deliver it. You'd have the paper boy, so to speak, in the literal sense. Fast forward to parental generation, it's a little bit different. People now, not as many of them get subscriptions, fewer people read it at all. Those that do, they pick it up in the store, commuting to work or whatever. They read it at work. The boss has the copy. It's there. Everyone can read it or whatever. It's enjoyed more passively. And then some people, like my mom, they buy it for the cartoons. Now we've got the internet, though. I don't know anyone in Gen Z that reads newspapers. Not a single one. I know very few millennials that do. Mostly it's related to, I'm in the waiting room and I just flipped through the National Geographic a couple times. I happened to pick up the paper. I needed something to doodle on, so I bought the New York Times. Why would you subscribe to these groups? And it's all lies anyway. It's not entertaining. You can't interact with it in the same way. It's just not fun. There's an entertainment aspect to news that wasn't really fully exploited technologically until really very recently. The first foreshock of this, honestly, other than shock jocks and radio, you get some of that in the 70s and 80s, arguably very early on, with the arrival of Stern and some of the other early wave people that were doing this. That's one thing. Sports radio, of course, being a thing as well. But insofar as the news format goes, weaponizing it for entertainment purposes, Fox News. We're not talking about that long ago. We're talking about within the millennial lifespan. Very, very short period of time, roughly overlapping with the advent of the internet as a sort of public, at-home sort of thing that everyone wanted to be part of. In that very short period of time, newspapers have been decimated. Most of these magazines, they cover satire, politics, or whatever. It's like, what's the difference between Mad and The Onion? The Onion's going strong. Why? They made the successful transition to the all-digital format. Mad didn't. They stuck to being primarily a magazine. Hell, the one thing that they did differently in the MTV generation that was really popular, that they just canceled out of the middle of nowhere, was Mad TV. By the way, where Artie Lang comes from. Much better than the magazine. I mean, come on. How many times can you do the same 5 jokes in a fucking magazine format? Anyway, we've gotten to the point where there's no longer any profitability in making a paper. It costs money to print that paper. What does it cost to host a website? Far, far less. In order for me to reach 100,000 people, costs relatively little. It's the investment of I need a computer set up to be able to record. I need an internet connection. You got to pay for your internet connectivity. Good microphone, stuff like that. To reach 100,000 people, minimal investment. By the way, I can do that over and over again for years and years, reaching 100,000 people here and there. I can reach 250,000 to 300,000 people every single day cross-platform. It costs relatively little. Some of the equipment, yes, can be on the expensive side. I'm talking about trying to upgrade at some point when I have a more permanent setup. I know I keep saying this, but it's better than it was, isn't it? I'm doing what I can. Meanwhile, in order to have an actual paper, you'll need a corporate office. You know, those bigwigs there, they don't want to have to sit with the little people. They're getting their 6-figure salaries. You need the printing room. You need you need to deal with some paper supplier and an ink supplier. Ink, by the way, is very expensive. All of these different things have to be managed. You need lawyers and accountants and shit like this just to reach the same kind of audience for lower profitability. Why does that make any sense? And you're contributing to deforestation. Ban papers and magazines altogether. That'd be the best thing for the world, probably. Just fucking ban them outright. End up less trash in your landfills. There's no reason to have them anyway. They're vestigial. And some people are like, well, no, having something you can hold in your hand is great. Yeah, I would agree for like books or something strictly educational or entertaining or something. But this is just the same exact material, literally the same material that you can get on a website. There's no legitimate reason for it to exist in that hardcover format. There's no reason for the newspaper. It's obtuse, unwieldy, inefficient. It's a relic of last century. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, I would encourage everyone that I reach here, cancel all of your newspaper and magazine subscriptions. Look, some of you spend an inordinate amount of money per month. You're saying, oh, it's only $100 a month to these different magazines and newspaper stuff. Yeah, why don't you spend that on something that's, actually entertaining that you're not getting lied to by? You shouldn't even, they should develop a browser that blocks sites like CNN and shit like that, all of the propaganda rags, and deploy it across the world. And make it superior to every other browser. Make it something that people can't live without much more than these propaganda rags. Let's fucking throttle and choke them off even more. That's about all. Peace out.